You live in an apartment with a balcony the size of a postage stamp. You look at those glossy gardening magazines with their sprawling raised beds and perfectly tilled rows and think that world isn't for you. But what if I told you there are vegetables that actually prefer being trapped in a bucket over sprawling in open ground, that a 5-gallon plastic container can outperform a garden bed by delivering bigger yields, cleaner harvests, and fewer pest problems? Today, we're opening the file on 10 vegetables that were made for bucket life. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the smallest growing space can sometimes be the most productive. Stay until the final entry, because the secret to making bucket gardens produce like commercial farms is hidden in the last 2 minutes, and without it, everything else is just guesswork. Let's be honest about what happened to gardening. Somewhere along the way, it became an industry designed to make you feel inadequate. They sell you tilling equipment, raised bed kits, irrigation systems, soil amendments by the truckload. And if you don't have a backyard, if you live 3 floors up in a building with no yard access, the message is clear. Gardening isn't for you. That's a lie. A profitable lie, but a lie nonetheless. Because some of the most productive food-growing systems in human history were container-based. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the ancient wonders, were essentially massive container gardens. Rooftop gardens in dense cities across Asia have fed families for centuries using nothing but pots, buckets, and ingenuity. The truth is that containers offer control. Control over soil quality, drainage, temperature, and even mobility. You can't move a garden bed when a storm comes. You can move a bucket. Here's what they don't tell you. Certain vegetables have shallow root systems that don't need deep soil. Others have compact growth habits that actually suffer when given too much space. Some crops are prone to soil-borne diseases that disappear when you use fresh container mix. And a few vegetables perform better when their roots are slightly restricted, triggering a survival response that increases fruiting. Buckets give you all of these advantages while costing almost nothing. We're not talking about expensive designer planters. We're talking about literal 5-gallon buckets from the hardware store, the kind that cost $3 each. Drill a few drainage holes in the bottom, fill them with decent potting mix, and you have a growing system that rivals any garden bed, and in some cases beats it completely. The first vegetable that thrives in buckets is the one most people get wrong: cherry tomatoes, not the giant beefsteak varieties that need half a garden to sprawl, not the indeterminate heirlooms that climb to the sky. We're talking about determinate cherry tomato varieties bred to stay compact. Varieties like Tiny Tim, Window Box Roma, or Patio Princess. These plants max out at 2 to 3 feet tall and were literally designed for container life. A single 5-gallon bucket can support 1 cherry tomato plant, and that plant will give you 3 to 5 kilograms of fruit over the season. Compare that to planting the same variety in the ground, where roots spread wide, energy goes into foliage instead of fruit, and soil pests move in to destroy your harvest. Why do cherry tomatoes love buckets? Temperature control. A black or dark-colored bucket sitting in full sun heats up the soil faster than ground soil ever could. Tomatoes are tropical plants. They want warm roots. In the ground, especially in northern climates, the soil stays cool well into summer. In a bucket, the soil heats up in days. That warmth triggers faster growth, earlier fruiting, and more concentrated yields. And because the container restricts root spread, the plant focuses energy on producing fruit instead of building a massive root system. It's a survival response. The plant thinks resources are limited, so it rushes to reproduce. Here's the practical setup. 1 5-gallon bucket per plant. Drill 6 1/4-inch holes in the bottom for drainage. Fill with a mix of potting soil, compost, and perlite for aeration. Plant your seedling deep, burying 2/3 of the stem. Tomatoes will sprout roots from any part of the stem that's underground, giving you a stronger root base. Water daily once fruiting starts because containers dry out faster than ground soil. Feed with a balanced organic fertilizer every 2 weeks. And here's the trick nobody mentions. When the plant sets fruit, reduce watering slightly. Not enough to wilt it, but enough to stress it just a bit. That stress signals the plant to ripen fruit faster and sweeten it up. Too much water makes tomatoes bland and watery. Controlled stress makes them sweet and dense. Next up is peppers, and this one surprises people. Peppers, both sweet bell peppers and hot chilies, are naturally compact plants with shallow root systems. They don't want to sprawl. In fact, they grow better when their roots are slightly crowded. A 5-gallon bucket is perfect, 1 plant per bucket, and that plant will produce 10 to 15 peppers over the season, depending on the variety. And because buckets heat up in the sun, peppers, which are heat-loving plants, thrive. Ground soil stays cool. Bucket soil gets warm. Warm roots mean more flowers, more fruit set, better flavor. Peppers in buckets also avoid one of the biggest problems pepper growers face in garden beds: root rot from overwatering or heavy clay soil. In a bucket with proper drainage, water moves through quickly. The roots get what they need without sitting in soggy conditions. And pests like cutworms and root knot nematodes, which devastate peppers in ground soil, are completely absent in container mix. You start with clean soil. You keep clean soil. No diseases carried over from previous seasons. Setup for peppers is simple. 5-gallon bucket, drainage holes, quality potting mix. Plant 1 pepper seedling per bucket. Place the bucket in the hottest, sunniest spot you have. Peppers need at least 6 hours of direct sun, and more is better. Water when the top inch of soil is dry. Don't overwater. Peppers hate wet feet. Fertilize every 3 weeks with a low nitrogen, high phosphorus fertilizer to encourage fruiting instead of excessive leaf growth. And if you're growing hot peppers, here's a secret. Stress them slightly by reducing water when pods start forming. The heat level in chilies increases under mild drought stress. It's a defense mechanism. The plant concentrates capsaicin to deter animals from eating unripe fruit. Third on the list is lettuce, and this is almost too easy. Lettuce has the shallowest root system of any common vegetable. Roots rarely go deeper than 6 inches. That means you don't need a deep bucket. A shallow container, even a dishpan or a cut-down bucket 6 inches deep, works perfectly. And because lettuce grows fast, you can harvest and replant multiple times in a season. 1 shallow bucket can produce lettuce continuously from early spring through late fall if you succession plant every 2 weeks. Why does lettuce do better in buckets than in garden beds? Slug and snail protection. In the ground, lettuce is a magnet for these pests. They chew holes in every leaf, making your harvest look like Swiss cheese. In a bucket raised off the ground, slugs and snails have a much harder time reaching your crop. And if you add a copper ring around the rim of the bucket, they won't even try. Copper gives them a mild electric shock. It's like an invisible fence for mollusks. You also avoid soil-borne diseases like damping off and bottom rot, both of which plague ground-planted lettuce in wet conditions. For lettuce, use any container at least 6 inches deep and at least 12 inches in diameter. Wider is better because you can plant more. Fill with potting mix, sprinkle seeds across the surface, cover lightly with soil, water gently, and wait. Germination happens in 5 to 7 days. Thin seedlings to 3 inches apart. Harvest outer leaves when they reach 4 inches long, and the plant will keep producing from the center. 1 container can give you fresh salad greens for weeks. Keep the soil moist, but not soaked. Lettuce is 90% water, so consistent moisture is key. And grow lettuce in partial shade during hot months. Full sun in summer makes it bolt and turn bitter. Morning sun, afternoon shade is ideal. Now, let's talk about radishes, because this is where bucket gardening shows its true power. Radishes go from seed to harvest in 25 days. 25 days. That's faster than almost any other vegetable. And because they have tiny root systems, you can pack them into a bucket. A 5-gallon bucket can hold 30 radish plants easily. Plant them 2 inches apart in all directions, and in less than a month, you'll have 30 radishes ready to eat. Do the math. If you stagger plantings every 2 weeks, one bucket gives you radishes continuously all season. Radishes in buckets avoid the main problem. Radishes face in garden beds, rock-hard soil. Radishes need loose, fluffy soil to form properly. If they hit a rock or a compacted layer, they split, fork, or stay stunted. In a bucket filled with light potting mix, there are no obstructions. Every radish grows straight, smooth, and uniform. And because you control the soil, you control the flavor. Radishes grown in rich, fast-draining soil with consistent water are crisp and mild. Radishes grown in poor soil with inconsistent water turn woody and spicy hot in a bad way. Setup for radishes is dead simple. 5-gallon bucket, drainage holes, light potting mix. Sprinkle seeds across the surface, 2 inches apart. Cover with ½ inch of soil. Water gently. Keep soil moist. Germination in 4 to 6 days. Thin if plants are too crowded. Harvest when roots are 1 inch in diameter. Don't wait too long or they get pithy. For succession planting, sow a new batch every 2 weeks from early spring to late spring, then again from late summer to fall. Skip the summer heat. Radishes bolt in hot weather and taste terrible. Fifth is bush beans, and this is a revelation for small space growers. Bush beans, unlike pole beans, don't climb. They stay compact, about 18 inches tall, and produce heavily in a short window. A 5-gallon bucket can hold 8 to 10 bush bean plants, and those plants will give you about 1 kilogram of beans over a 3-week harvest period. That might not sound like much, but if you run succession plantings every 3 weeks, you have fresh beans all summer from just 2 or 3 buckets. Bush beans in buckets solve the biggest problem beans face in garden soil: poor drainage. Beans are legumes. They fix nitrogen from the air using root nodules, and those nodules need oxygen. Waterlogged soil kills the bacteria in the nodules, and the plant suffers. In a bucket with excellent drainage, the roots get oxygen, the nitrogen-fixing bacteria thrive, and the plant grows vigorously without added fertilizer. You're essentially getting free nitrogen from the air. And because beans are light feeders, they don't deplete the potting mix. After harvesting beans, you can plant a second crop in the same soil without refreshing it. For bush beans, use a 5-gallon bucket with good drainage. Fill with standard potting mix. No need for extra fertilizer. Plant seeds 2 inches apart, 1 inch deep. Water well. Germination in 7 to 10 days. Beans grow fast. You'll see flowers in 4 weeks, pods in 6 weeks. Harvest when pods are firm, but before seeds inside bulge. That's the sweet spot. If you let them mature fully, the plant stops producing. Keep picking, and the plant keeps flowering. And here's the trick. Grow beans in the hottest part of your space. They love heat. The more sun and warmth they get, the more they produce. Green onions are next, and this is the ultimate lazy gardener's crop. Green onions, also called scallions, are probably the easiest vegetable to grow in a bucket. You don't even need seeds. Buy a bunch of green onions from the grocery store, eat the green tops, and plant the white roots in a bucket of soil. In 2 weeks, you'll have new green tops. Cut them, and they regrow. One bucket of green onions can supply you indefinitely if you keep harvesting and never pull the roots. Green onions have almost no root system. You can grow them in a container as shallow as 4 inches, and you can pack them tight. A 5-gallon bucket can hold 50 green onion plants if you plant them 1 inch apart. That's not an exaggeration. They don't mind crowding. In fact, they seem to do better when planted densely. And unlike bulb onions, which need months to mature, green onions are ready to harvest in 3 weeks from seed, or 2 weeks from replanted roots. The setup is absurdly simple. Any bucket, any depth, drainage holes. Fill with potting mix. Either plant seeds a 1/4 inch deep, 1 inch apart, or stick root ends from store-bought onions into the soil. Water regularly. That's it. Harvest by cutting the green tops 1 inch above the soil line. The plant regrows from the base. You can harvest the same plant 5 or 6 times before it exhausts itself. Then pull it, eat the small white bulb, and plant a new one. It's a perpetual cycle. Basil is number 7, and if you only grow 1 herb, make it basil. A single basil plant in a 5-gallon bucket will give you fresh leaves all summer. And I mean all summer. From June to October, one plant can produce enough basil for pesto, salads, sauces, everything. The trick is to never let it flower. When basil flowers, it puts energy into seeds and the leaves turn bitter. Pinch off flower buds as soon as they appear, and the plant redirects energy back into leaf production. Basil in buckets outperforms garden basil because of heat and drainage. Basil is a tropical plant. It wants hot roots and consistent moisture. A bucket in full sun gives it both. And because containers drain fast, you avoid the root rot that kills basil in heavy garden soil. The biggest mistake people make with basil is overwatering in the ground. In a bucket, it's almost impossible to overwater if you have drainage holes. Setup for basil: 5-gallon bucket, drainage holes, rich potting mix with compost. Plant 1 basil seedling per bucket. Place in full sun. Water when the top inch of soil dries out. Basil wilts dramatically when dry, but bounces back fast after watering. Harvest by pinching off the top sets of leaves. This encourages the plant to branch and become bushier. Never take more than 1/3 of the plant at once. Feed every 3 weeks with a balanced fertilizer. And seriously, pinch every flower bud you see. If you let it bloom, the plant's done. Chard, also called Swiss chard, is number 8, and this one is a powerhouse. Chard is a cut-and-come-again vegetable. You harvest outer leaves, and the plant keeps producing new ones from the center. A single chard plant in a 5-gallon bucket can give you greens for 4 months straight. And chard tolerates both heat and cold better than most greens. It keeps producing through summer when lettuce bolts, and it survives light frosts in fall when other greens die back. Chard in buckets avoids one of its main garden problems: leaf miners. These tiny fly larvae burrow into chard leaves and create ugly tunnels. In garden beds, leaf miners are everywhere. In container soil, especially if it's fresh, they're absent. You get clean, unblemished leaves. And because chard has a relatively shallow root system, a 5-gallon bucket gives it plenty of room. For chard, use a 5-gallon bucket with drainage. Fill with potting mix enriched with compost. Plant 1 chard seedling or sow seeds 1/2 inch deep. Thin to 1 plant per bucket. Water consistently. Chard likes moisture, but not soggy soil. Harvest outer leaves when they're 6 to 8 inches long. Cut them at the base, and new leaves will grow from the center. You can keep harvesting for months. Chard tolerates partial shade, so if your balcony doesn't get full sun, chard is a good choice. Carrots, specifically mini varieties, are number 9. Standard carrots need deep, loose soil to grow long, straight roots. That's hard to achieve in garden beds, especially if you have clay or rocky soil. But mini carrot varieties like Thumbelina or Paris Market only grow 2 to 3 inches long. They're perfect for buckets. A 5-gallon bucket can hold 25 mini carrot plants. Plant them 2 inches apart, and in 60 days, you'll have a bucket full of sweet, crunchy carrots. Carrots in buckets eliminate the frustration of forked and twisted roots. In the ground, carrots fork when they hit a rock or hard layer. In a bucket filled with loose potting mix, every carrot grows perfectly round or cylindrical. And because you control the soil, you control the flavor. Carrots grown in rich, loose soil with consistent moisture are sweet and tender. Carrots grown in compacted soil with irregular water are tough and bitter. Setup for carrots: deep bucket, at least 12 inches. Drainage holes: light, fluffy potting mix. Sow seeds on the surface, then cover lightly with a 1/4 inch of soil. Carrot seeds need light to germinate, so don't bury them deep. Water gently with a mist setting. Keep soil moist. Germination takes 10 to 14 days. Thin seedlings to 2 inches apart. This is critical. Crowded carrots don't size up. Water consistently. Irregular watering causes split roots. Harvest when roots are 1 to 2 inches in diameter for mini varieties. Pull, rinse, eat. The final vegetable is strawberries, and this is where bucket gardening gets creative. Strawberries aren't technically a vegetable, but they grow like one. And strawberries in hanging buckets are a game changer for small spaces. A 5-gallon bucket with holes drilled in the sides can hold 6 strawberry plants, 3 in the top, 3 through side holes. Hang it from a balcony railing or a hook, and you have a vertical strawberry tower that produces fruit all season while taking up 0 floor space. Strawberries in buckets avoid ground pests like slugs, snails, and pill bugs that devour berries in garden beds. The fruit hangs in the air, clean and protected. And because buckets warm up in the sun, strawberries ripen faster and sweeter. The key is to use ever-bearing or day-neutral varieties that produce continuously rather than June-bearing varieties that fruit once and stop. For strawberries, use a 5-gallon bucket. Drill 3 2-inch holes in the sides, evenly spaced. Drainage holes in the bottom. Fill with rich potting mix. Plant 1 strawberry crown in the top center. Carefully plant 3 more through the side holes by threading roots through from inside before filling the bucket. Water from the top. The water drains down and waters all plants. Feed with a high phosphorus fertilizer every 2 weeks during fruiting. Pinch off runners unless you want to propagate new plants. Harvest berries when fully red. A well-maintained bucket can produce strawberries from May to October. Now here's what ties all of this together, the secret I promised at the beginning. Buckets work better than garden beds for these 10 vegetables because of one principle. Root restriction triggers production. When a plant's roots hit the edge of a container, it receives a signal. Space is limited. Resources might run out. The survival response is to reproduce quickly. That means more flowers, more fruit, faster maturation. It's the same principle used in bonsai and commercial fruit tree production. Restrict the roots, increase the yield. But root restriction only works if you provide enough nutrients to support that increased production. That's the catch. Container soil has less total volume than garden beds, so it depletes faster. You have to feed your bucket plants. Use a balanced organic fertilizer every 2 to 3 weeks, or mix slow-release granules into the potting mix at planting time. Without adequate nutrition, root restriction becomes root starvation and yields collapse. Water management is the second key. Buckets dry out faster than ground soil because they're exposed to air on all sides. In hot weather, you might need to water twice a day. The test is simple. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's dry, water. If it's moist, wait. And always water deeply until it drains from the bottom. Shallow watering encourages shallow roots, and shallow roots can't support heavy fruiting. Drainage is non-negotiable. Every bucket must have holes in the bottom. No holes means waterlogged soil, root rot, and dead plants. Drill at least 6/4-inch holes evenly spaced across the bottom. If you're worried about soil washing out, place a coffee filter or landscape fabric over the holes before adding soil. This lets water through, but keeps soil in. Soil choice matters more in containers than in garden beds. Garden soil is too heavy for buckets. It compacts, restricts airflow, and drains poorly. Use potting mix, also called container mix. It's lighter, fluffier, and designed to drain while holding moisture. You can make your own by mixing equal parts peat moss or coir, compost, and perlite or vermiculite, or by bagged potting mix. Either works. Just avoid using dirt from the yard. Sunlight is critical. Most of these vegetables need at least 6 hours of direct sun daily. If your balcony or patio is shaded, your options narrow. Lettuce, chard, and green onions tolerate partial shade. Everything else needs full sun. Check the sun exposure of your space before deciding what to grow. The economics of bucket gardening are hard to beat. A 5-gallon bucket costs $3. Potting mix costs $10 for a large bag, enough to fill 3 buckets. Seeds or seedlings cost a few dollars. Total investment per bucket is around $7. A single cherry tomato plant producing 5 kilograms of fruit is worth $20 to $30 at grocery store prices. One pepper plant producing 15 peppers is worth $10 to $15. The return on investment is absurd, but the real value isn't economic. It's independence. It's the knowledge that you can grow food anywhere. You don't need a yard. You don't need raised beds. You don't need expensive equipment. You need buckets, soil, seeds, sun, and water. That's it. And once you've grown your first bucket of tomatoes or peppers, you realize how much of modern gardening is unnecessary complexity designed to sell you things you don't need. There's also something deeply satisfying about walking onto your balcony, picking a handful of cherry tomatoes still warm from the sun, and eating them right there. No grocery store, no packaging, no transportation from halfway across the world. Just you, the plant, and the fruit. It's a connection to food that most people have lost, and it's available to anyone with a few square feet of outdoor space. Start small. Don't try to grow all 10 vegetables in your first season. Pick 2 or 3 that excite you, maybe cherry tomatoes and basil, maybe lettuce and radishes. Grow them, learn from mistakes, and expand next year. Gardening in buckets is forgiving. If something fails, you dump the soil, clean the bucket, and try again. No digging required. And once you've mastered these 10, you'll start seeing other possibilities. Cucumbers in buckets, zucchini in buckets, even small pumpkins in large containers. The principles are the same. Control the soil, manage water and nutrients, give the plant what it needs, and it will produce. So here's my question for you. Do you have access to a balcony, patio, porch, or any outdoor space where you could set a bucket? Answer in the comments. Yes or no. I want to know how many of you are ready to start growing food in small spaces. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's possible, hit subscribe and like. This channel exists to give you practical knowledge that actually works. No fluff, no selling you things you don't need, just real information about growing real food in real spaces. Every bucket you fill with soil and plant is a small act of independence. It's a statement that you don't need permission, you don't need a yard, and you don't need to rely completely on a food system that's fragile and controlled by corporations. You can grow some of your own food. Not all of it, but some. And some is better than none. The bucket garden isn't just a technique, it's a mindset. It's the realization that the barriers you thought existed were mostly imaginary. The industry wants you to believe gardening is complicated, expensive, and requires space you don't have. But the truth is simpler. Plants want to grow. Give them light, water, nutrients, and a place to put roots, and they'll grow. A bucket is a place for roots. That's all it needs to be. And when your neighbors see you harvesting vegetables from buckets on your balcony, some will think you're crazy. Others will ask how you did it. Teach them, share your extra seedlings, give them a bucket of cherry tomatoes and watch their faces light up. That's how knowledge spreads. Not through corporations and marketing, but through people helping people. The 10 vegetables on this list are just the beginning. They're the gateway. Once you see what's possible, you'll start experimenting. You'll find out that herbs like cilantro and parsley grow great in buckets, that small varieties of eggplant produce well in containers, that even potatoes can be grown in buckets if you layer soil as the plant grows. The possibilities expand once you understand the principles. And here's the thing they don't want you to know. You don't need their systems. You don't need industrial agriculture to feed yourself some fresh vegetables. You don't need supply chains that span continents. You need sun, water, soil, seeds, and the willingness to try. Everything else is optional. So write in the comments right now. Which of these 10 vegetables are you going to try first? Tomatoes, peppers, lettuce. I want to hear from you. And if you're already growing in buckets, share your experience. What's worked? What's failed? Let's build a community of people who know how to feed themselves without asking permission. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This channel is about reclaiming knowledge that's been buried under marketing and corporate control. Every video is a piece of that puzzle. And share this with anyone you know who lives in an apartment or small space and thinks they can't garden. They can. They just didn't know it yet. The bucket garden revolution starts with one person, one bucket, one plant. Let that person be you. Let today be the day you stop thinking you can't and start proving you can. Get a bucket, drill some holes, fill it with soil, plant something, water it, and watch what happens. Because here's the final truth. The most empowering thing you can do in a world that wants to keep you dependent is to learn how to provide for yourself, even in small ways. A bucket of tomatoes won't make you self-sufficient, but it will remind you that you're capable. And capability, once remembered, spreads to other areas of life. Knowledge survives only when we pass it on. So take what you've learned here, use it, and share it. That's how we break the cycle of dependence. That's how we build resilience, one bucket at a time.